Hey Divine Ones, this is Jerome Braggs. I want to come to you and do a live. It is Tuesday afternoon, and I'm thinking about calling these Tuesday chats something. I don't know. I always like to kind of give things a name, so maybe Truth Tuesdays or something like that. But anyway, it's Tuesday, and I want to come and talk to you about something that's been coming up for me. I've been thinking about in the last, few days or so, and that's my first near-death experience. If you're new to me, and this is kind of your first video with me, in 2004, I had a near-death experience when I checked to the hospital with what I thought was the flu, but ended up being diagnosed with kidney failure and AIDS, and then given 7 days to live. And it was on my deathbed after the doctors pretty much told me there was nothing much they were going to be able to do for me and to get my affairs in order to make my transition. At that time on my deathbed, I was faced with what I now know are the questions we ask ourselves when we're dying. And these are kind of the core questions. They kind of vary a little bit. I know there's a book that's been going around written by a nurse who worked with people in hospices. And she kind of found there were 5 major ones that everybody kind of asked. Some of mine are similar to hers, but there are some that are a little bit different. And I wanted to share what mine were because I've been thinking a lot about this the last few days as I'm looking to make some more changes in my life. At this point in my life, I'm looking at making some more changes. But these particular regrets greatly influenced how I live my life today. They greatly influenced how I approach my life. Even when I work with people these days, when I'm working with clients privately, it influences how I work with them and what I help them with. So it has been kind of these regrets really became the foundation for how I approach my life and even how I approach the work I do with other people. So I wanted to share them with you, what they were, and also what I learned from them that has changed the living of my life today. So on my deathbed, when I was dying, I was 24 years old. And there were a host of other illnesses, but the main ones were disease and kidney failure. But I also had pancreatitis, I had anemia, I had fluid-packed lung, I had a parasite in my stomach. I was very sick. And on my deathbed, and I was alone, by the way, because I was living in Washington, D.C. I had just moved there after I had graduated from college and was working there, and I didn't have any family there. I didn't have any friends other than the ones I had just made there. I was probably maybe a year in. I think I had been in DC probably a year. But for the most part, I was alone. And so I was on this hospital bed by myself, alone, with my parents thousands of miles away, trying to get red-eye flights in to come see me. And these questions began to come up after I began to look over. It was kind of a life review almost, where I began to look over my life and review my life. And these questions began to arise. So I want to share these questions with you. So the first one, the first regret that I had, right, and looking at over my life as I began to do a life review over what my life was and how I lived it and all of that, was I happy with it, all of that, was the first regret I had was that I didn't really follow my dreams. I was young at the time, but there were things that I wanted to do right after college. I had moved to DC at the time to become a singer. At that time, I wanted to become a singer. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to sing at that time. And I wasn't doing that. There was a book that I knew that I wanted to write for years. There was a book that I knew I wanted to write about healing. Even though I had never had it, I've known mystically that I was here to write something about healing for a very long time. And I had never spoken out publicly about what I knew about healing, and I wasn't in any process of writing that book. Also, I had never really shared all the spiritual wisdom that I had, right? That all the things that I was learning about, how you really manifest your life and what you really are as a spiritual being, having a human experience, and all of the things that I knew, because my learning and my mystical awakening happened very early. it kind of became a masterclass after my near-death experience. And if you're following me, you know I talk a lot about that. Like my healing journey was my soul's masterclass in, healing and well-being and living well as a soul on the planet. But I didn't know a lot about the law of attraction. I knew a lot about those things, and I wasn't sharing it. I wasn't speaking it out in the ways that I wanted to. And I had a big regret for that. I had a big regret that I wasn't following my dreams, and I wasn't living, really going after my passions and what I really cared about, and things that brought me joy. And it was a deep pain, and I can't describe it other than that. It was just like a deep pain in my heart that I knew that I was getting ready to die, not having followed the things that really mattered to me. And not really having followed, whether I had achieved it or not, whether I had fully written the book or not, or I had become this famous singer or not, but that I wasn't even in the process of pursuing it, that I wasn't pursuing the things that really mattered to me, deeply bothered me on my deathbed. It was a deep, deep pain for me. And so what I learned from that was to not put those things on hold, to not procrastinate around those things, to not wait till we have everything perfect, right? I know for a lot of us, we'll say, well, when I get more money, I'll do this. Or when I lose more weight, I'll do this. Or when I look this way, I'll do that. Or, I really have this. I talk to clients all the time who are like, and when I ask them, what do you really want to do with your life? What would make your life really juicy? What's calling you to do? And they're saying, well, I would really like to just sell everything and go trekking across Europe, or I would like to help children in Australia, or I would like to build something in Africa. And I asked them, okay, why? Why aren't you doing that now? Go do it. And it's, well, when I get this, or when I get this, or when I get this, or when I get that. And what I learned on my deathbed from that first regret was we will what if ourselves right out of life itself. That you will keep procrastinating, and you never know, one, if you're going to have all the time. And also, what I realized on my deathbed around that was, because I was procrastinating and putting all that off and not pursuing it, I never really fully enjoyed my life. That those things really mattered to me, and that they brought joy to me to even think about. And I was depriving myself all that time from life. And it was also the other part of this one. The first one is the first one because it was the biggest one. And it was also, I didn't regret the things that I took a risk at and failed at, right? So there may have been things that I tried out, or I thought were important to me and I went after, and then I found out either they weren't, or they really were important to me and they didn't work out, or whatever that was, that did not come up as a regret for me at the end of my life. That was not a regret for me at all, not even a small bit. But what I did regret was all the risk I didn't take. All those things that I wanted to do that I never just went ahead and either, healed the fear and went over it, or, either because I was listening to everybody else saying, oh, you shouldn't do that right now, you should save your money, or, oh, you shouldn't do that, you should be focused on your career, or whatever, right? Whatever the reason why I put that to the side and did not take the risk, I deeply regretted that. And so nowadays, what that taught me was to make what's important, to make it the main thing of your living, right? So if there's something that to base your very life on your passions, and to not procrastinate on things that are calling you, especially the things that you know are important to you, to do them now. Go do them now. It's one of the very things when people come to me for healing work, right? For people who come for me to help them heal, especially people that want help healing their bodies and they have some type of quote unquote chronic or incurable disease, and they want help with healing that. One of the first things I ask them is, what would you do how would you live your life if you were fully healed today, Like if the doctors called you and they said this is fully recovered, it's fully in remission, or it's fully gone, what would you do differently with your life? Do it now. And we make a plan for them to do it now. And that's kind of how I live my life now. If there's something really important I want to do or something I'm dreaming about, I don't put it off. I put myself in the process of it now. So, for example, there's a podcast I've been dreaming about this year starting. I'm in the process of that. It will be coming out really soon. I've always wanted to live by the water. And so one of the part of my own healing process was to move home to Oklahoma City, and that's kind of, landlocked. And so I'm in the process of looking for water properties somewhere near the water, or at least a place where I can spend several months and then come back and back and forth. But that's kind of the thing, to not put these things off, right? And to not procrastinate, and especially to put other people's opinions in the way of your dreams. Because what I realized is I had a coach one time that said the graveyard is the richest place in the world, and it's because it's filled with all the hopes and dreams of all the people that died, that never faced them, that never went after them. And those are the riches that that was the riches of their life, and the riches that they would give to life, that they died with. And I really learned that was something that really influenced me, was to really live your dreams and your joys today, and to base your life off of it. So the work I do now, and I'm going to talk about work here in another one too, because that came up in one of the regrets, but we're still on number one. But yeah, the work I do is really based on what my dream is. I love, talking about spirituality and healing, and what I learned in my journey. I love that. And I do stuff like this, like videos and speaking engagements and all that, to share my message more and more, and to not wait and wait and wait and wait. And so all of that is stuff that I learned and reshaped the living of my life, right? Because my near-death experience was really about how do you effectively live life well, and I was dying because I was not living life well. Not because I wasn't eating well, or because I wasn't, doing a right diet or anything like that. I was dying because I was not following my soul's mission for being here. And that's what drains the life out of you more than anything. More than any diet, more than any food, more than anything, is you not living in alignment with the mission for which you're here. And your dreams and your joys are literally signposts to tell you what that mission is, and they're guiding you along it. And when you don't listen, you're out of alignment with your mission. So that was number one. The second thing that I regretted was that, it's what I didn't articulate my feelings. So not just articulate my feelings, but hearticulate my feelings. Like I didn't really I didn't speak from my heart. I didn't really express how I really felt about the people who were in my life. I didn't really appreciate them enough. I didn't verbally appreciate them, right? So one of the things I remember, and it's so funny, because it's funny what you will come up with at the end of your life, right? And one of the things that came up for me was just how much I loved my mother's spaghetti, and how much I had never told her that, and how I really regretted that I wasn't going to get a chance to not only have her spaghetti one more time, but tell her, really let her know that I really loved her spaghetti, and that I thought she made it amazingly, and it was one of the best spaghettis I've ever had, and I've had them all over the world. And so I really and it was other things about the friends I had, about how I never really told them what they meant to me. And also, my family and the people I really loved, that they didn't know the extent and the degree of my love for them, and what I appreciated about them. And that was a regret for me. And it's funny, because after my near-death experiences, when I went into my healing journey, my intuitive gifts opened up. So, I'm a channel. I have many of the senses opened, like clairvoyance, claircognizance, clairaudience, clairsentience. But one of the gifts that opened for me that was very much a surprise because it wasn't anything that I was ever wanting or asking for was mediumship. And so I worked as a medium, connecting people with their loved ones who passed on the other side. I worked for many years doing that type of work. And one of the things that is one of the main things people from the other side used to tell me, and while I was communicating, with them and their loved one that was still here living in the physical, was what happens when we cross over and we become the fullness of our souls into the spiritual realm. One of the first things that happens after you pass is you have what's called a life review. And I had kind of a mini life review on my deathbed, but this is a larger life review. It encompasses not just this life that you're having, it encompasses all the incarnations of your soul. And you look at not just the decisions that you did make and the choices that you did make, but you look at the choices that you would have made and what life would have been like with those. It's a very broad and very kind of infinite, eternal, divine look at your life experience and how it affected you and all those around you. And one of the things that those people would tell me a lot was, the souls on the other side would say a lot was, two of the regrets that they had was, one, they didn't live their life for the joy of it. They didn't follow their dreams. That was the first thing. The second thing was that they didn't express the love in their hearts to the people they really needed to express it to, right? And so it's not, from the soul's perspective, it's not really just it's not like a pain like regret, but it's just like yeah, I can see where that negatively affected my life, and I could see where that kept the joy and the full expansion of my being from happening. And so that further solidified that for me, right? How important that is to really speak your heart to the people in your lives. I know for a lot of us, I didn't have a model of how to do that, right? I didn't have parents that did that really well. I didn't have a culture that did that really well, especially for society as men, particularly black men. We're not really taught, and there's not a lot of models out there for men really expressing their emotions and really telling people how they feel about them. But I regretted that. That was a deep, deep regret. And so how that influenced my life today is I make sure that the people that are in my life, they know how I feel about them. And I make sure that they know it often, right? And as a matter of fact, one of the things I used to do that I really attribute to my healing the first time was when my parents flew up. So they flew up at the red line because they thought I was going to die in a matter of hours. So they flew up from Oklahoma to Washington, D.C. And just so happened that I was, putting everything that I knew about creation and the law of attraction and spirituality and manifesting a reality. I was throwing everything I knew about it. And so I was living, right? I was starting to live. And so as they were in my house, as they were in the hospital with me, and they were staying in the hospital some nights and then staying in my apartment for me while I was still in the hospital, because I was in the hospital about a month and a half, back and forth. And one thing we would do every night for each other before I went to bed, before they left me and left the hospital, was I would tell each one of them 3 things I really appreciated about them. And it was 3 different things every night. I made them 3 different things every night. It was either 3 things I loved about them, 3 things I really celebrated about them, 3 things I was really grateful for about them. And then they would each tell me 3 things they were grateful for about me or appreciative about me. And that was my way of getting it all out. Like I got it all, I was able to say over that time, I was able to tell them everything, like all what I felt about how they were as parents when I was a kid, and what I loved about how they helped me through college, and just all of that. I looked at, through that experience, I looked at how often we just don't do stuff like that. And that's literally what I do now every day when I get off the phone with a friend, or when I get off the phone, before I get off the phone with family members, or especially my parents. I try to tell them something I appreciate about them, or what I really care for, what I really like about them, or how I really care about them. I try to do that often, right? I try to let no time go past without me articulating how I feel. And again, I'm articulate, right? So I'm articulating the feelings I have in my heart for this person. And that's kind of how I live my life right now. If you are close to me, even if you're a client of mine, I will tell you at some point, how I really feel about you and what I really appreciate about you and what I see as beautiful in you and what, I'm grateful for about you. And that's just how I live my life these days. The third one is the third regret that I had was that I never learned how to really feel good about myself. I never learned how to really feel good about me. Now, this may not be the regret everybody has, but I know that this is kind of rampant, especially in the West, because we are really socialized and saturated with the message of you're not enough some type of way. And I grew up believing, and I grew up being socialized and actually traumatized, actually, when I was a kid, believing that because I was bigger than the rest of the kids that were around me in my kind of peer group, I was a little thicker. And so I was teased a lot, called fat a lot, and chubby, and made to believe that something was wrong with my body. Something was wrong with how I looked. And not just that something was wrong with it, but it didn't belong and it was undesirable. And so I felt shame for the majority of my life around my body and my body image. I felt shame around it. I never grew up feeling good about my body. Also, I was made to feel when I was younger that my sexual identity, being same gender loving, was wrong and unholy. And so I hid that. And I felt like it wasn't safe to fully be myself in the world. So I didn't have, to that point when I was on my deathbed, I never really knew what it was to feel really good about who you were, feel good about yourself and feel good within yourself, right? Feel good about who you were, how you looked, and just to feel at peace and at ease within your being. I had fear and shame within my being. And I really regretted that. I regretted that I didn't learn how to do that I didn't move through the world not caring what other people thought about me, that I didn't move through the world not defining myself and my looks or my worth or my attractiveness by any external standards, that I didn't find a way somehow to feel good about myself no matter what. And so that was, and that regret highly influences my life today, because one of them, I know through my own healing journey, and if you follow my journey, there was another near-death experience that happened a year afterwards, which I crossed over into the other realm and was told the key to not just healing yourself, but to well-being, to really living a well and juicy life, was to learn how to love yourself. And I did that journey. I went through that deep journey of what it takes to really feel good about yourself. And within yourself and all the other aspects that love is, because love is a multifaceted vibration. It's not just about appreciation and feeling good about yourself and acceptance. There are some other elements to it, but they're vital elements of it. But that's the basis of my life. Like, I don't move through my life and I don't engage in anything if it's going to try to influence me to feel less than myself, less than in any way. If it's I don't watch certain things on television, I don't listen to certain music. If it's going to make me feel or try to enhance the message of there's something wrong with me, I am very careful of what goes into my consciousness and what goes into my energy and into my environment. And I only put things in my consciousness and in my environment that uplift me, that nourish me, that affirm my goodness on all levels. So that was huge for me, because I also understood in my near-death experience that the illnesses were a reflection of all the shame and the fear that I had in my body. That those energies literally disconnect our bodies from the flow of wellness. That the energies of shame and the energies of fear are the two biggest toxins that literally drain wellness energy out of the body. And so one of the things that I learned from that experience was how vitally important feeling good about yourself is. So I built my life on things that what I can do to feel good about myself. This is why I work out. This is why I do affirmations. I do a lot of mirror work. I still do it. It's not just that I teach it and that I coach it. I literally do it daily to keep myself in the space of really looking at myself through the eyes of love and appreciating myself and seeing the good in myself and not looking at and not holding a belief of anything being less than about me. So that was the third one. The fourth regret was that I didn't live my life authentically. And I kind of touched on this a little bit in the last one. But that this one was really that, I didn't live the life I really wanted to live. That was fully just me. I didn't live it like how I wanted to, right? I was living life based upon kind of what my parents thought I should be doing and what society said. At that time, there was a big push for I went to college for the joy of college. I didn't go to college to necessarily, because I thought I was going to be a singer. So I didn't really think that college, I was going to be, a soul singer. So it wasn't that college was going to be something necessary for me and for the workplace. But I got into college and I got so socialized into the message that you got to go to college, you got to get this degree, you got to study hard so you can get this good paying job. And my whole focus became trying to get a good paying job instead of doing what lit my soul up, right? Doing what I really wanted to do with my life, right? So I was working a job, which in the beginning I did kind of enjoy, but it wasn't what the draw was from my soul for my life, right? I wasn't living authentically. I was living based upon what my parents said you need to do, what society said I needed to do. And that's so much of us. I know many of you all can resonate with that. So many of you are living lives today that is not your life. And it's not your life when you're not really excited every morning to wake up into it. When you feel drained by it, when there's something in your gut that's calling you, something else you're really interested in, but there's a feeling of you're settling, right? And that's not why we're here. That's not why our soul came to this particular incarnation, this particular life. It did not come here to settle. It did not come here to live life by anybody else's terms or on anybody else's standards. It came to do it on yours. And there were several, one, I was hiding my sexuality. I was suppressing it, right? I was living on the DL. On the down low, and for all of you all that don't remember what DL means a down low, meaning I was very secretive and hiding and not living fully in my sexual identity. I also wasn't living, I wanted to be a singer. I wasn't doing any of that. I was really interested in spirituality, and I wasn't really doing a lot of that. And I was just living a life that wasn't mine. It didn't feel good. And I was always worried about what somebody else was going to think. If I go too far into the spirituality, what is my traditional Christian family going to think about this? What is my traditional black culture going to think about this, right? Black culture going to think about this. If I come out, as a same gender loving person, what's my family going to think? What's the world going to think? I'm not going to be safe. They're going to reject me. So I never really lived my life. And because of it, my life never was fully radically blissful. I wasn't really joyous and just loving my life. And this is something that I teach. So this is what I learned from that. Because this is something that's at the core of my work, is that, and my message today is that you're here to radically, wholly, and ridiculously love your life. All of it. Not just a segment over here and a segment over here, but the whole spectrum of your life you are supposed to enjoy. It doesn't mean that every minute of every day is going to be like high bliss level, but the the arc of your life is going to be one of bliss. And in order to do that, it's got to be authentic. Also, what I learned after this regret kind of set this learning up for me, is when we don't live authentically, if there's anything about us that we're suppressing or we're denying or we're abandoning or we keep pushing away, what you're actually doing is you're keeping God God energy, the all that is, the divine that creates worlds, you're keeping it from fully expressing on the planet. Because you are God energy in human form. And when you don't be you, when you don't be the fullness of you, and when you don't fully express how you're being called to live here, you are keeping the energy of God from being fully on the planet through you. That's literally what's happening. That is the responsibility that you have as a soul having a human experience, is to be yourself. That's really only the real purpose for life. The purpose for life is to be your authentic self as wholly and as fully as possible, and to have a damn good time doing so. And so that's really one of the ones that really influences my life a lot today. Is every day I am very cognizant before I even start my day, is how can I be more of me today? How can I be more of me today? How can I bring more of Jerome in? I do not take on projects that do not feel authentically aligned with me. I'm very clear about what my values are, what's important to me. I'm clear about like what my personality is, and I shape my life and my work around that. And I do not do anything that's not in alignment with that. And I know a lot of people will say to me, well, you know, I still need to pay the bills and I need to do money, but and I tell them, love, you are a soul. You are God energy. You are God energy. There is nothing in this life that you cannot have, do, or be. If you want to make money and you want to find a job or you want to start a business that isn't aligned with who you really are, the universe will move mountains for you to do so if you commit to it. My work today, so that's basically, again, I built work. So I stopped doing work, and this is where a lot of people fall in, because a lot of people are doing work, and I was one of them. So I was one of these very people at that time, doing work that was not me. Like I did kind of like my work a bit. I did enjoy it, but I didn't enjoy how I had to do it. It wasn't really what I really wanted to do at the time. And, you know, a lot of people are in that. We're doing stuff we really don't want to do. As a matter of fact, it may stress us out. We may actually dread going to that job. But you're doing it because it makes money. And that is literally draining life out of you. It's literally draining life out of you and it's keeping you from doing your mission. And so what I learned from that today was to build all of my life around who I really am. To let no part of my life suppress who I am in any way. No part of my life, not just my sexuality, but my spirituality and what my values are, and what my silly personality is, right? If I can't be silly, if it's not, you know, I like to have fun and adventurous, I like it to be grounded in spirituality. So if it doesn't have all of those things in it, I don't engage in it. I don't. And I've built a business around that, serving people, doing what I care about, which is helping people heal and create really delicious, life experiences for themselves. This is what I care about, and I'm just being me, just being Jerome. So that was really something that I know that I cannot spend any more time in my life doing anything that is not in alignment with who I am. That does not allow me to be the expression of who I am. Not only is it detrimental to my joy, but it's detrimental to my life. It literally will lead to illness and disease in my body when I keep suppressing who I am. And it keeps me from fulfilling the mission for which my soul came here to be, which was an expression of God on the planet. So that's number 4, right? And the last one was, I regretted that I didn't spend more time with the people that I loved, and that I spent so much time with people that I didn't, and doing things that I didn't, right? So that's, you know, thinking about looking at the relationships I had in my life and the people that I had that were either draining or that weren't really exciting for me, or I really didn't enjoy being around, and how much I was missing the friends that I really loved and it really made me laugh and really felt connected with. I didn't see them a lot, and also I was spending so much time with people who weren't really in alignment with me. I was having a lot of surface conversations. I don't like surface conversations. I like depth. You know, when I'm with people, I like to have really deep conversations, like talking about what you're learning about, how you're growing, what are your dreams. I don't like talking about sports and the news and all of that all the time. That drains me. I can't do it. But that was what my life was filled with, like relationships where that was the norm. And I regretted that. I regretted not spending more time with people I really cared about and I really loved being around. And I regretted spending so much time with people that I didn't, and doing things that I didn't, right? And, I mentioned earlier the nurse who had the book. I think it's called The Five Regrets of the Dying. And one of the regrets that she listed in that book, that when she talked to a lot of patients that were in hospice and on their dying beds, and what they were talking about they regretted, was a lot of them regretted that they spent too much time at work. They worked too hard and they didn't spend enough time with their loved ones and out in the whatever. And so while I wasn't really in the work field that long, because I was 24, I think, at that time, that I had this. So I think I had it just a year. But so it wasn't like so that didn't come up, that I regretted that I worked too hard and too long. What I did regret was the time that I had, I was not spending it appropriately. I wasn't spending it. And this is what I really learned. The time you have, the appropriate way to spend your time is with love. Is with love, doing things you love, with people you love, loving yourself, living a life that you love. That's how you spend your time. That's where the majority of your time needs to be spent. That's how you live life well, so that at the end of your life, whether that comes 50 years from now, whether that comes 5 years from now, whether that comes 5 weeks from now or 5 days from now, that when you face the end of your life, you have no regrets. The very reason why I chose to begin the healing journey for myself was because I did not want to die like that. I did not want to die having all of those regrets, that I didn't follow my dreams, that I didn't articulate my feelings, that I didn't feel good about myself, that I didn't live my life authentically, and that I didn't spend time with love. I didn't want to die like that, because that wasn't living. I realized that I was dying not having fully lived. And that made me know what living really is. Living is articulating our feelings. It's spending time with our loved ones, the majority of our time with love, doing things we love, with people we love, in a life we love, following my dreams and my joy and feeling good about myself, articulating my feelings. That's living well. And that's exactly how I base my life. That's the structure of my life today, and why my life tastes so much better and so much more delicious now than I could have ever dreamed before. But that is what I learned about this process. And I know hopefully those of you who are watching will have learned something for your own lives. You can look at your own lives, right? And one of the exercises I'll give you before we end this video to help you with this is just to literally close your eyes for a second, take in a few deep breaths, and imagine this is your last day of life. There is no more life for you after this. You are going to die at the closing of the sun on this very day. Are you happy, fully happy, with how you lived your life? Is there anything you wish you would have done? Is there anything that's been left unsaid? Are there any regrets? Just again, this is your last day. You do not have life tomorrow. You are going to die tomorrow. Are you happy with how this life was lived fully? Is there anything you wish you would have done differently? If so, what is it? Feel into that. What would you have done differently? Where would you have spent your time differently? Is there anything that you wouldn't have done that you did, or maybe you wouldn't have done as much of? Is there anything you wanted to do more of that you didn't? Any risk you wanted to take that you did not? Breathe all that in, and then take a deep breath in and exhale it out. And you can open your eyes again, and then realize you're alive and you have a second chance at life. Take that information that you got from that exercise right there and begin to shape your life around it. I promise you, life gets way more delicious if you do that. My life is way more delicious and juicy since I made those changes in my life. And I know as a fact that those changes, making those changes in my life, were the things that helped my body heal. Because again, the more you live a life of love, the more you express love through your being, the more you hold the energy of love in your being, the more you live joy and love, that's wellness, that's well-being, that's the life force energy that draws through you, that causes your body to be well, that heals your body, and that keeps your life working well. That's it. It's not hiding yourself, suppressing yourself, not following your dreams, doing what everybody else says, but never listening to your own heart, not spending time with people you enjoy being around, that you love being around. That's literally starting to die. Living looks very differently than that. It looks like what we talked about here in this video. And it is my deepest dream that you all begin the process of living and living truly well. I hope this video has helped you in that process. As always, if you want extra help, you can always reach out to me for a coaching session. I love to work with you as an intuitive healer to help you create a more well and delicious life for yourself. But until next time, I love you guys. Bye.